So we're going to intermission. Going to play a chess game. Okay.
Pawn d5.
I guess try to get this thing going here. I guess that's alright. So my opponent's rated 1341. I'm rated 1477, so I'm favorite here. I am playing with the black pieces, and it's been a while since I, practiced. But I guess oh wow. Wow. Okay. That's bullshit. But whatever.
Pawn e4.
Okay. Okay, that's better.
Pawn d5. Pawn takes d5. Knight f6. Knight f3.
So I'm 1454, he's 1510, so he's favorite.
Knight takes d5. Pawn d4. Knight c6. Pawn c4. Knight b6. Pawn d5. Knight b8. Knight c3. Pawn c6. Pawn takes c6. Queen takes d1.
There's a check.
King takes d1. Knight takes c6. Bishop e3. Knight d7. Knight b5. King d8. Bishop f4. Pawn e5. Bishop g3. Pawn f6. King c2. Pawn a6.
Make him back up a bit.
Knight c3. Knight b6.
Just try to guard some squares here.
Pawn a3. Bishop e6. Pawn b3. King c7. Bishop e2. Bishop e7. Rook h1, d1, rook h8, d8.
Fighting for the open file here.
Knight d2. Knight d4.
It's a check.
King b2. Knight e2. Knight takes e2. Rook d7.
So I've had the bishop pair.
Knight f3. Rook a8, d8. Rook takes d7. Rook takes d7. Knight c3.
I could sacrifice the bishop for 2 pawns.
Bishop takes c4. Pawn takes c4. Knight takes c4. King b3. Knight d2. Knight takes d2. Rook takes d2.
Okay.
Rook c4.
I don't see where
King d7.
he's going to have anything.
Knight e4. Rook d3. Rook c3. Rook takes c3. Knight takes c3. King c6.
So I'm just going to have to make my
Pawn g6. Pawn f3. Pawn h5. Bishop f2.
have to make my initiative last a bit here. Restrict the movements of his knight.
Pawn h3. Pawn g5. Knight e2.
So he's trying to trick me there.
Pawn b5. Knight c3. Pawn takes a4. Knight takes a4. Pawn g4. Pawn h3 takes g4. Pawn h5 takes g4. Pawn takes g4. Pawn f4. Knight c3. Bishop g5. Knight e4. Bishop e7. Pawn g5. King d5.
He can go back here.
Knight c3. King
And gain on this
e6.
pawn.
Knight e4. King f5.
You can't save it. I might take time out to move this pawn just to see if I can save it. But I don't think so. If I let his king chase it.
Knight c3.
So he wants to go there.
Bishop takes g5. King a4. Pawn e4. King a5. Pawn e3. Bishop e1. Bishop f6. Knight d5. Bishop d4. King takes a6. King e4. Knight c3. King d3. Knight d1. King e2.
So I get a piece here.
Pawn g3. Pawn f3.
My bishop guards the square.
Knight takes e3. Bishop takes
Guards
e3.
the square.
Bishop a5. Pawn f2. Pawn g4. Pawn f1. Pawn g5.
Resign. So let's see. Okay. We need to okay. So when he does this, that's not right. Anyway, kind of weird that you can't use the okay, so he's fighting for the center and he's trying to attack my pieces. When I retreat, I'm making him overextend himself. Like he's got all this air around his king. You know, like all this air. And he's developing. And he took the pawn. I traded queens. He moved his king, so he can't castle anymore. Now the pawns are even, if you notice. He's got 3 here and 3 here. That's 6. I've got 4 here and 2 here. That's 6. So I have a queen side a majority, or a king side majority. I have 4 against 3. I'm going to try to use that to my advantage. So he wants to try some shenanigans. Now here I've got 2 pieces against 2 pieces. So if he takes with his knight, I take with a knight. He takes with a bishop, I take with a knight. So he'll lose his knight and bishop for a knight and pawn. So he doesn't want to do that. And I just created a nice, strong, healthy pawn chain here. Next move is going to be attacking this knight. So he's going to have to move. He can go there or there. He can't go here. It's blocked. This knight doesn't really have any good squares, any forward squares. He could come here and here if he wanted to, but he couldn't come here because my bishop controls that. Okay. So I threaten his knight. He moves it back, and he's threatening to come here and have a nice outpost. Just threatening squares. So I move my knight, and it controls that square for right now. He can't push this pawn because I have my bishop guarding that square. So he's trying to push. Okay. So these two bishops are controlling key squares, right? Like all these squares are safe, and I have the two rooks. Both of them can control the squares. So I have dominance like over these squares. You know? Like I control this whole center file with my pieces. And this is a check. And I win the bishop pair, so I'll have the two bishops and he'll only have one, which it's really not that good because it doesn't have any scope. So I take the bishop, he takes it back. I rook lift to double my rooks. He trades. And now here I decided to trade my bishop for two pawns. Got a check. Check. Trade the knights. Now it's rook and bishop against rook, knight, and bishop. But I have these four pawns against these three pawns. And I have these two pawns against that one pawn. And I have my rook is guarding this whole 7th rank. And my bishop is controlling that diagonal. And my king has freedom on the light squares. Okay. So I moved to the light squares. I checked him. I traded the rooks. Now I'm playing against his knight. His knight doesn't have any forward squares. It can come here, but that's all it's got. Like it can't come here, or it can't come here. It can't come there. It can't come there. So he doesn't have any forward squares. And I'm just pushing my pawns to create this wall of pawns to play against these three pawns. Okay, my bishop and my king, and I have these two pawns here, which is enough to distract him. I give him problems on both sides of the board. And I didn't take the pawn. I wanted to keep two connected pawns. Attacking his knight. Attacking his knight. So he loses a piece here. He can't come to any forward squares with his knight. I mean, I guess he could trade the knight and pawn for the bishop and maybe have a shot that way, but he didn't take that. And he's going after this pawn, but I have this which attacks his bishop, and it's closer to those two squares, and my king will be able to help. My bishop can help. So I attacked his knight. Got my bishop on a good square. And now I'm attacking both his pieces. He's going to have to do something. He pushed a pawn. I just ignored it. And he traded his knight for a pawn. And he can't stop this pawn. It's unstoppable. And this pawn, my bishop controls that square. So that's pretty much game over. and he resigned. But like, he pushed the pawn, so I could just take it.
Bishop takes g5.
And then he can go back and
Bishop
forth with
e6.
his
Queen
bishop,
f5.
and I'll just restrict this here so his king can't come forward.
Bishop a5.
And then I'll just come over here to
Queen d5.
restrict it even further. So I've got this line and this line. So basically, it's this box, okay, that I've got his king in. And I just bring my king over slowly, and I can use my bishop even to cut some more lines off. So he can just play back and forth,
King
back
d3.
and forth.
Bishop a5. King c4.
And if he's not
Bishop
careful,
b5. King b6.
like now,
Bishop e3.
his bishop is dead.
King c7. Bishop takes.
So I control that diagonal and that diagonal. He does have that square. So
King d6. Queen d5.
and he can just keep running, but I'll just restrict him,
c6. King f7.
and I'll bring my king over
d5. King e7. Queen e6.
and just figure out which way he wants to go.
King f8. Queen
And
d7.
now he's restricted to the back rank, and that's the little square that he's in. So he can only come over here.
g8. Bishop
I take that square, so he only has 2 squares that he can go to.
King h8.
And I just bring my
e6.
king in.
g8. King f6. King h8.
Then when he goes
King
here, I just
e6.
come back, because my king protects the flight squares and my queen gives mate from a distance. I mean, I could have played a different, you know, I could have went here and then here, or, you know, like that, and had the queen here with the checkmate, but this looks cooler. So there you have it. There's the game in a replay. Just trade the queens, protect my fort. Now playing like this, it's a little harder because, you know, you're down the exchange or whatever. Like, he has 1 pawn, so I have 2 pawns for the piece, basically. And I'm about to be down another pawn, so I have 1 pawn for the piece, which is not adequate compensation in most cases. So, but in this case, I managed to pull it off. And just restricting him, pushing him back, taking his squares away, and just making him go to these 2 squares. And there you have it. There's the chess game for the day. Log out of this here. And there you have it.